What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a banger. I've been sitting on this story for so long, and I'm so excited to share this with you guys. This is my first time ever doing Liquid LSD. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Drop a like if you do. And also, if you want to get both of us some free money just by downloading an app, all you have to do is download the app Dosh. The link is at the top of the description. Once you download, all you have to do is connect an eligible debit or credit card completely free of charge, and you get in-app credit for free. It's a cashback app that saves you money on a day-to-day purchases. You'll never get charged. It costs no money to sign up, and you actually get money just for signing up. It helps both of us out as I get paid too. I greatly appreciate everyone who downloads the app. It's an awesome way to get some extra side income, and I personally have made over $9,000 off the app in cash back. Hope you guys download that app. Thank you in advance if you do. And without further ado, let's dive right into it. Now, this happened so long ago, guys. This was like 4 years ago now. And way back when I used to go over to Chris's house all the time and go to his garage and chill and smoke and trip, there used to be a lot more interesting characters who would go over to my friend Chris's house, right? And for those of you guys who may be new to the channel or just stumbled upon this video, Chris is a longtime friend of mine who I used to go over to his house all the time and smoke and trip and, pretty much consume any substance I wanted to in his garage. And it was like the kickback spot, right? So on this particular day, I go over to Chris's house, right? And, it's a normal day, not planning to do anything crazy. And we had this buddy back in high school. His name was Julian. And I'm actually using his real name because I don't even know if this guy exists anymore. Nobody knows what happened to this dude. From what I heard, he went off the deep end. Like, this guy, I heard he's like an actual, junkie now. So I hope he got some help. But nevertheless, back in the day, we used to kick it with Julian. And Julian was an interesting character. He was a huge psychedelic guy. He loved tripping all kinds of psychs, whether they were, RCs or they were like LSD and shrooms, any kind of psychedelic or mind-altering substance. He ate it up. He loved it. He also made his own vape juices. He was just an interesting guy. And we used to have him over to Chris's house to smoke with us all the time. And he'd come over, bring his vape juices, fill our vapes up, and we'd try out his juices, and they were pretty good, and he made them really strong with a lot of nicotine. So, our little high school selves, we'd love to get geeked off this guy's vape juices, right? And he'd come over, share those with us, and it was always a good time. On this particular day, he comes over, right? And Julian, he was like your very typical, psychedelic, user. He just looked like he did psychs. He'd always wear, button-down Hawaiian shirts or, drug rugs, really long black hair, fucking just never, well-groomed, always just, messy hair and shit, pulling up on a longboard. This guy he embodied the psychedelic user, right? So he pulls up on this particular day. We shake up with him. I'm like, hey, what's good, Julian? Hadn't seen him in a minute. And we catch up over a blunt, right? Me and Chris conveniently already had a blunt rolled when he pulled up, so we're smoking a little bit, and he takes his backpack off and starts pulling out a bunch of shit out of it, a bunch of different vials, and I figured all of them were probably vape juice, and most of them were. This guy would always pull up with different kinds of homemade vape juice and show them to us, right? He'd be like, hey, smell this. What do you guys think of this? Would you guys buy this and shit like that? On this particular day, this guy pulls up with a vial, and it's completely clear, almost looks like water. And he's got this little look on his face, and I already know what it is. Once I put two and two together, knowing Julian, I'm like, oh, that's some acid, dude. This is some shit right here. And he talked about, doing, having these little vials of just liquid acid all the time. And he used to sell a lot of the shit. And, my main plug was Ashton back then, but also I would get some of my psychedelics from Julian when he had them, because he always also had really good shit. And on this particular day, Julian, he busts out the vial, and he's like, you boys want to trip? And I'm like, oh shit, dude, because I'd never tripped with liquid acid before. I'd never just had a dropper, right? I'd always put a tab on my tongue or gel tabs or something like that. But I was pretty up for it, and this was during the peak psychedelic usage phase of my life. This was about 4 years ago, almost to the date, back in early 2016. And during this phase of my life when I was in high school, I was taking acid at least once to twice a week, bare minimum. I was eating way more than I should have been. Nowadays, I don't really do it as much, but back then, oh man, I was going crazy back then. But nevertheless, Chris is a little hesitant. He's like, I don't know if I want to do it today because, Chris and Julian had just tripped a couple days prior. And Julian was the kind of guy where, like, this dude would literally trip every day if he could. Like, this guy would do psychs every day. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, I'll try some. He's like, hell yeah, dude. I'm like, what do I got to do? And he's like, well, if you want to go crazy, I could drop it in your eye or I could just drop it on your tongue. And I'm like, dude, I thought he was joking. And I was like, are you serious, dude? And that's how I found out about dropping acid in your eye. I remember that part vividly. That's how I found out that was a thing. Because he was like, yeah, dude, I could fucking drop it in your eye, dude. I mean, I'll do it with you. I was like, no, dude, I'm not ready for that yet, dude. Just put it on my tongue. So he drops it on my tongue, right? And I'm chilling. He's like, just let it sit on your tongue. It'll just kind of absorb. You don't have to do anything. And I'm like, all right, cool. He drops it on my tongue. Literally, it tastes like nothing. Like, it's like a drop of water, dude. Like, it's like I got a little hydrated, Like, there's no real taste to it, Like, nothing stood out. And that's one thing. For those of you guys watching this video who have never done acid before, and you're maybe going to do some liquid LSD, and you're looking into this, this video here to get some knowledge beforehand, one way to tell if you're getting what is called N-bombed, which is fake acid, is taste it. If it's bitter, it's not good. And if it's bitter, you need to probably smack the guy who gave it to you. But this stuff tasted pretty much like nothing. So Julian's like, yeah, dude, enjoy. And I'm like, all right, for sure. And I didn't really care that I was the only guy tripping in the garage, Like, Julian didn't end up doing any either. But I didn't know if he was already tripping because Julian was the kind of guy where he'd pull up to the function off like 4 different drugs and you'd think he was sober. Like, this guy was just always intoxicated to the point of, like, you could just never tell, right? So either way, he drops this little bit on my tongue. It's just one little droplet, right? He's like, let me know if you need some more later, if you need anything. And I'm like, all right, for sure. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? Before this kicks in, let's go to the store or let's go to McDonald's or something and get some drinks, So Julian's like, yeah, sure. So we all hop in my car. I hand Chris the keys, right? And I let Chris drive, and I'm sitting shotgun. Julian's in the back seat. And we run up to McDonald's and grab some orange juice. Orange juice is a staple whenever you're tripping. Get some fucking OJ. If you're able to handle your acid, OJ, it's not placebo effect, dude. Like, drinking OJ while you're tripping actually just puts you on a rocket ship, dude. I don't know what it is. Don't ask me. But either way, we get this OJ and we go back, and I'm still not tripping it. I'd just taken it, right? We get back to Chris's house, and, in Chris's garage, there's these big old TVs set up, right? And we're always playing PlayStation and having a good time on those. So we're playing some PlayStation. We're gaming it up, chilling out. And slowly, I feel it start to hit. Now, one thing that I was expecting that didn't really happen, I was expecting it to be different than a trip with a, normal just putting a tab on my tongue, which kind of is unreasonable because it's the same substance, you're just consuming it without the piece of paper. But I don't know why, I just expected it to be a lot different, and it really wasn't. It was a pretty standard trip, arguably a little more intense than it should have been for what I considered a 1-dose trip, right? I start coming up, and I'm feeling it immediately. My arms just feel like they're pulsing. All my limbs just kind of feel like I look down at myself and my limbs are just like they're pulsing, dude. And as soon as I see that and I look around at the floor in the garage, despite the fact that it's just concrete and everything in there is just plain, there's no decoration or anything. I'm just looking around. I'm like, oh shit, dude. Like, here we go, boys, and I'm starting to just feel it in my veins almost, You get that, like, tingling feeling going through your body when you first start coming up, and it's just like this uplifting, like, oh, here we go, It's almost like how your stomach feels when you get to the top of a roller coaster, if that makes sense. And you're about to go down the hill, It's like, oh, shit, dude. So that hits, and immediately I'm not focused on playing PlayStation anymore, dude. I get off PlayStation and go sit on the couch in the garage, right? And I'm looking around, and on the wall in the garage, there's this spot where there's this, like, paint splattered all over. I don't know if Chris shot, like, paintball guns at the wall in there or what happened, but there's really bright neon paint just splattered all over this one side of the wall in his garage. And I remember turning around and just staring at it for the longest time, and all the different colors looked like they were melting together, and it was the coolest thing. And at this point, guys, I was well into my trip. Like, I make it sound like this all happened within the first 20 minutes, but for the first like hour or two of my trip, I was just staring at my surroundings while they were playing PlayStation and not really noticing a ton of what I was doing. And after a while of me doing this, Julian kind of picks up on the fact that obviously I'm tripping balls. And he's like, hey, dude, how you feeling? I just kind of giggle. I remember I'm just like, haha, I'm fucking great, man. And, I always loved tripping. And this was one of my fondest trip memories because it was one of the more different trip experiences for me. Normally, most of the time when I would trip, I would do it with Ashton and the same kind of group of people. But this time, I actually got it from Julian. It was kind of a different trip experience. And I remember it really fondly. It was a really, really good time and a different experience for sure. But nevertheless, after that, Julian kind of strikes up a conversation with me, and we're just chatting a little bit, going back and forth about bullshit, talking about news, whatever the fuck. I don't remember what we were chatting about, but I think he was just kind of picking up on the fact that I was tripping balls and needed to be occupied, So he's chatting with me, and guy was a great trip sitter, by the way. Like, you would always want to have that guy around when you're tripping. He'd make it a good time. We roll up a couple blunts. And while they're rolling up the blunts, I'm chilling out on the couch, just scrolling through my phone, chatting a little bit. And finally, we get these blunts in the air, right? And they spark them both at the same time. I remember Julian sparked one and Chris sparked one. And then they both came my way at the same time. And I got to go akimbo with the blunts. And once I got to go akimbo with the blunts, that's when shit got serious. I hit both those blunts at the same time. And for those of you guys who might not have tripped before, done psychedelics, when you smoke weed while you're tripping, it amplifies the trip. It has kind of an opposite effect of when you'd smoke weed normally. It doesn't actually calm you down. It actually amps you up and it gets you more, it just makes you trip harder when you smoke. So I hit both these blunts at the same time, and I remember exhaling really slowly, like watching the smoke come out of my mouth, almost as if it looked really cool, even though I knew to everyone else I looked like a fucking idiot. And I'm sitting there, trying to do smoke tricks, and I can't do smoke tricks, dude. I suck at them. But I'm sitting there trying to do cool shit, playing with the smoke, and finally I realize, hey, I'm kind of hogging the blunt a little bit. So I pass them back, and I decide, I'm going to pass them separately instead of akimbo again. And then we'll just fix roto to make sure I don't get two blunts at the same time again. And that's what we did. We ended up passing them around. And, roto went well. I start tripping sack as soon as this roto is almost done. Like, I'm talking, I start sinking into this couch and looking around, and I'm like, you know what, boys? We should take a walk. And I'm the only guy tripping, but lucky enough, Julian was a very understanding guy, and he loved being outdoors. He was like, hell yeah, bro, let's go to the park. So there's this field that's kind of behind Chris's house, and I remember we walked down his street and cut through the back of it to this big open field where there's like this church and this park that's kind of close to it. And we're just kind of walking through the field, looking at the park, walking around, having the time of our lives. And I didn't even drink any of the OJ yet. By this point, the OJ was like 3 hours old and it had never been touched, right? Like just never touched, right? We're walking around, just kind of having a stroll. And I'm literally just wandering through a field for like 30 minutes to an hour, talking with Julian and Chris. And we get back to the garage once again. And like, we didn't really drive around or go anywhere or do anything too crazy. It was just one of those experiences where I just kind of really, really went with the trip. I just kind of made it a normal evening and went with the flow. And it turned out really awesome, One thing I like about kind of tripping with homies like that, even when they're not necessarily tripping, is you could turn those kind of evenings where it's like, it's like you don't have shit to do and it doesn't seem like it'd be a good evening to trip, into a really fun, like kind of just a blast of an evening, This whole evening, I get back to the garage, I finally start smacking on that OJ, and I'm just on cloud nine. I remember my whole body's feeling so good. I remember just, oh my God, just that feeling, dude. I almost can feel it again now, dude. Just thinking about, like, I'm having like an acid flashback right now. Just thinking about this trip, dude, and like how good I felt. And, like, the visuals, dude. The visuals on this particular trip were really memorable because normally it was just more vibrant colors for me. But on this trip, the visuals were intense. Everything was actually pulsing and moving, and it seemed like things were changing shape and form, and like it was a completely different. I don't want to say completely different, but visually a very different experience from a normal trip. But other than that, like mentally, it wasn't all that different. But it was nevertheless an absolutely amazing experience, dude. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this trip story. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention how the night ended. I'm fucking stoned, dude. I'm sorry. I smoked right before this. But basically, after we got back and smacked the OJ, all that really happened was played some more PlayStation. And then I ended up having Julian whip my car back to my house and longboard back over to Chris's place, you know? It was a pretty chill night. Once I got home, I just kind of laid in bed and fucking gamed until I passed out, dude. Like it was a pretty chill evening after that, but nevertheless an awesome fucking trip. And I was lucky my mom wasn't home when I got home either. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time.